Hi, this is Garibay, and today we're going to talk about the death of the American Blockbuster and how, in my opinion, this is going to massively impact the ability for people to romantically pair. So basically, um, yeah, because I think unpacking the loss of the death of the American Blockbuster causes is absolutely staggering, and we really need to do this autopsy because I don't think anybody had any idea how important the American Blockbuster was to American culture. And so, just one of the absolutely devastating losses that's going to happen is right now. I think actually, it's not even young. American adults who are looking to go into romantic relationships for the purposes of dating and or allowing that dating to progress to a marital state. That was incredibly challenging before, but the loss of the American Blockbuster is going to make it catastrophically more difficult. Okay, so why is this? Well, the American Blockbuster created a structure. It created thousands of theaters all over the country that were temples to attention, right? And so one person could say, who was interested in somebody else romantically, could say, hey, do you want to go to the movies with me on Friday night? And if you just asked that question, there were 55 things that took care of, right? One, if you were asking another person alone, it was often understood that this was a date. And you didn't have to say, will you go on a date with me? You were just saying, hey, let's go to the movies. And the other thing is, if it was misunderstood that it was a date or not, no harm, no foul, man. Like you were just going to the movies. It wasn't the end of the world. So it really created this incredibly safe space where you were both in public, you were both going forward, and you're both in public, and you were going into a situation where you could enjoy time together, but it was going to be in a public space where there'd be lots of people to see you out and about, and it immediately gave you something to interact with, to enjoy together, that was quite universal, right? And the reality is, if your relationship was at a point where you were kind of determining what was going to happen with your relationship, how it would go forward, it was so perfect because you could just watch the movie, right? And let's say your relationship had gone a little further, right? And you didn't really care about the movie. You could literally just enjoy sitting together, right? Maybe you hold that person's hand, right? And it was perfect, right? And that was all that was needed. Just you would be in close proximity to each other, right? And it was so perfect and here's the thing. This stuff doesn't come easy, right? Now, without that, what are you going to do? You're going to go to dinner, right? Now, immediately, food's in the mix, right? So maybe you're a vegan, maybe they're a carnivore, and the other thing is The other thing is with movies, they weren't cheap, but they were accessible to everyone, right? And when you went to the movies, it didn't matter if you were rich or poor; everybody saw the same film, right? And this was a big deal because it flattened. It gave people who didn't have money the chance to show themselves in a romantic way, or even in the beginning of a romantic relationship, on equal ground with people who had money. Because it didn't, if you have money and you don't have money, you see the same movie, right? And even though the popcorn was $10, who doesn't have $10, right? You could at least scrape and save and buy the same bag of popcorn that a rich person would buy for the person you cared about. And it was so perfect and so useful and so helpful. And I'll tell you right now, it sure as heck helped me. Took my wife to Turner and Hooch. Took my wife to New Jack City. Took my wife to 20 movies before we got married, at least, right? And sometimes your game was on, and you could if you're looking for a romantic partner, sometimes your game's on, right? And you know what you're doing, you know what this next step is. But if you weren't sure, and there were different pits along the way of bringing a person who's just a friend to a point of romantic interest, it was a big deal. It was just a huge big deal, and it was such a huge helper. And this is we have a love crisis in America. young people have a more complex, they have such an incredibly complex path to finding a romantic partner. It's so much more complicated, right? I think 20, 30 years ago, there was a simplicity that existed that isn't even remotely available to anyone seeking a romantic partner today. And there were already a massive amount of hurdles between two people who just wanted to find somebody to love and care for. And this was a super useful on-ramp that could be used again and again and again, that took away class issues, took away social issues, and just leveled the playing fields and gave people this perfect, useful place to explore if a friendship should go to a romantic area. And it didn't give them anything more than time and proximity. That's it. That's all it gave them. But that was so invaluable, and it is so gone and so just lost now that it's hard to even explain the loss that we've reached, right? And this is just, and you might think this is a small loss from the American Blockbuster. It is not. It is massive, right? Get this. They changed car seats in the American car, and there are scientists who have said that it costs like between like 1 and X million children's births, right? Because people knew their kids would not fit into the vehicles they were purchasing, right? We have no idea how incredibly destructive the loss of the American Blockbuster is going to be. I think it's going to be massive. This is just one corner of it. One corner of it. It is so incredibly upsetting that we've lost this. That's my opinion. What do you think? Is there something I'm not here that I'm not seeing? Is there something that could replace this? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.